Hello, and welcome to episode 13 of Sir Astro's Star Wars Shatterpoint painting series. In this video I'll be painting Hera Syndulla from the Star Wars Shatterpoint miniatures game by Atomic Mass Games. My basic process for painting Hera will be to begin with some flat, solid base colours, followed with some careful black lining, and some highlights which will include some gentle stippling to create a subtle bit of texture. Let's begin. As usual, I'm starting with the eyes, where I'm using white sands, then some black to provide the whites of the eyes, followed with the pupils and dark lining for the surrounding area. It's possible to get a little blue either side of the pupils. Here I'm using Caribbean blue, but it's certainly not essential, as it's the kind of detail that won't be visible from a standard gaming distance. I'm now providing a base coat of Ardennes Green for the skin. A couple of layers here will give us a nice even tone. Next I'm using Graphite for the headgear. This part that runs across the forehead isn't actually sculpted on, but I feel she looks a little strange without it. I'm also using this for the chest and neck part of the inner top. This could also be used for the arms if you want to keep things simple, but I've chosen to mix in some Gobi Brown to capture the slight shift in colour present in the design of the animated character. Next I'm mixing a little black into some walnut to create a fairly desaturated brown tone. And I'm using this to paint the brown parts of the headgear. Notice I'm trying to preserve the thin grey strip on each side. We can neaten things up as we go. And let's not forget the strap that runs beneath the chin. We can also use this for the gloves. I'm using the same colour for the chest and shoulders, but with a little Arabic shadow mixed in. And I'm also painting the boots. Next I'm darkening some graphite with a little black and using this for the belt and straps. And I'm using a couple of different levels of grey to paint the light and dark portions of the blaster. And here I'm painting the metal plates on the boots. For the main colour of the trousers, I'll be using a mix of Mars Orange and Sol Yellow, but I'll first be adding some Walnut to darken and desaturate things a little for the base tone. This can also be used for the small studs on the front here, as well as the side panels of the blaster. Finally, I'm painting the lenses of the goggles with an off black, and the comms device with a little graphite. I'm now going to begin adding the highlights, where I'm starting with the skin. For that, I'm going to progress from the Ardennes Green base tone up to Sherwood Green, then Fall Green for the brightest highlights. We can use this first mix of Ardennes Green and Sherwood Green to cover most of the skin except for the deepest shadows. I've now built up to pure Sherwood Green, where we can really begin accenting the volumes of the face. I'm not too concerned with the smoothness of the transitions on the Leiku, as we've yet to add the markings, which will be the thing that draws the focus of the viewer. I'm now going to paint the lips using African Shadow, then with the addition of some pink flesh and white sands to highlight the lower lip. Here I'm mixing the highlight tone. I'm now providing an even brighter glint off-centre, which I'm now correcting with the shadow tone. I'm now returning to the skin, where I'm progressing from the Sherwood Green up to Fall Green. The obvious places we want to accent are the forehead, cheekbones, nose, the tip of the chin, and the upper lip area. Notice that with cylindrical volumes like the Leiku here, I often like to use a series of short strokes that run perpendicular to the cylinder. I often like to highlight faces first, as it's the most important part of the model, where I usually want to achieve the greatest level of contrast and nuance. We can then calibrate the remaining highlights on the model so as not to overpower the work we've done on the face, ensuring that it remains the primary focal point. Here I decided to glaze a little of the pink flesh into the cheeks. I'm now using an off black to sharpen up the eyebrows. And we can use pure Fall Green to add a few final highlights. Next I'm going to add varying amounts of white sands to the fall green and use this to paint the markings on the Leiku. If you're unsure of how bright to go, it's better to start off with something fairly close to the fall green, then work over the top with a brighter tone if needed. We can certainly expect to do some tidying up with the surrounding tone as we go. Sometimes I like to plot the shapes out with a few small dots before committing myself. Incidentally, for tips on magnification, posture and stability, you might find my But How video useful, which I'll provide a link to in the video description. Naturally, it's worth studying stills from the animated series if you want to mimic the pattern as closely as possible, but there would of course be nothing wrong with simplifying the design if need be. With the skin complete, I've decided to provide some careful black lining to all of the main borders on the model. This might take a while and may require some tidying up when we go astray, but I think it's definitely worth the effort as it really helps to create a clean, punchy, well-defined look that nicely captures the feel of the animated character. I'm now going to highlight the rest of the figure, starting with the grey areas, where I'm simply adding Nacar to the respective base tones. We can use pure Nacar for the brightest spots. I don't mind a bit of a ridged look for the straps and belt. For the arms, I'm also including some additional Gobi Brown along with the Nacar to maintain a slightly warmer tone. Here we want to avoid the thin seams on the design. For the gloves, I'm simply adding some birch to the base tone. And I'm also adding some additional Arabic shadow along with the birch for the chest, shoulders and boots. I'm doing a bit of stippling here, partly to create a subtle bit of texture, and also because it's just a nice easy way to achieve some pleasing transitions. I nearly forgot the headgear. And here I'm just highlighting the plates on the boots, once again up to pure Nacar. Next I'm highlighting the trousers by simply increasing the amount of the Mars Orange and Sol Yellow mix in the base tone. I ended up going for a somewhat stippled look here too. As usual, it's the more upturned parts that I want to catch the most light. I'm now using some grey tones to pick out a few highlights on the blaster, as well as adding a few chips to the orange paintwork. I'm then gluing Hera to the base, which I painted earlier, which has also received a coat of matte varnish. I'm now adding a few final highlights and picking out a couple of the smaller metallic details on the gloves, as well as the comms device. These are my last couple of refinements. And this completes Hera Syndulla. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you found the video useful. As always, you can find full paint and product lists in the video description, along with links to all of the places I can be found online. My deepest thanks go to my kind patrons for funding this work. If you'd like to support what I do, feel free to hit the Patreon link and pledge what you can. Join me again soon as we continue painting miniatures from Star Wars Shatterpoint. Happy painting!